Hey tubers, Old Dog here, and today I'm going to do a little video about money. Show me the money. And this was probably my number one subject that I reviewed and studied and looked at on YouTube when I was living in America and I was looking for a place to live. And my primary question about money before I pulled the trigger was, how much a month am I going to need to live on? And so I knew how much I was going to have coming in off my Social Security, and I wanted to be under that as far as what everybody was telling me what it costs to live here. And so I'm not going to dare advise you. I'm only going to tell you what I did and how much I brought. And this is the second time that I've made notes. I gave this a little thought because it's an important subject. It's an important matter, and I don't give advice. The other vlogs that I watched, guys, were sort of advising, and I've kind of gotten, I just don't feel comfortable doing that. I feel the best way for me to communicate with you is to stay true to what my channel is really all about, and that's a channel just made for me, and it's a little video diary of my life here. So I'm just going to recall what happened to me and then let you draw your own conclusions from it. Is that fair? I think so. Anyway, how much cash did I bring? What kind of a safety net did I have? How do I transfer money once I get here? ATMs, credit cards I forgot to write down, opening a bank, and my monthly budget. So I'm writing notes down because I don't want to miss any of these things. And me knowing me, I usually go off on some sort of, tangent because I distract myself. So here we go. Prior to coming over, and I won't waterboard you with all the details again about why I came here, but primarily it was because it was a place I could affordably live on my Social Security. I couldn't live as good as I do here in America for the same money. I would have to keep working or just put off my retirement till later, and I didn't want to do that. I was ready to go. So prior to coming out here, what I did was I sold my little condo. I had a little profit from that, and I actually continued to work after I filed for the Social Security. It took 2 months for my first Social Security check to get into my bank from the day that I turned 62 and filed for my Social Security to actually receive an actual check. And I worked up until that point. In fact, I worked beyond that point, and I think I was out of work about 2 weeks prior to the second check coming, which was in May. And what I did was I hung out in the States actually just so I could get my taxes done. It was the April deadline deal. And so I did my taxes. I wanted to make sure I got those all filed. And I was also in a pretty good state of paranoia and discombobulation in my own head. And so I didn't trust anything. I don't know, I was just at a frenzied, weirded out state of mind. So I wanted that second check to hit just to reassure me that yes, it's working. So that happened. And so I got the proceeds from the sale of my little condo, and I paid off all my credit cards. All my credit cards was 2 that had balances, and then I had one with a 0 balance. So while I've got that on my mind, and before my mind wanders, I had a credit card with a $1,500 balance available. I had another credit card, Capital One, what's in your wallet, for $5,000, and I had a Discover card with a 0 balance with a $5,000 limit. And so in my heart and mind, I had $11,500 available money to me that I considered to be part of my safety net. In other words, you get sick, you get into an accident, you need to buy a plane ticket and come home, whatever. I figured, okay, I can just always throw it on a credit card. So that's what I did, number one. I had $11,500 available credit and had zeroed out my balance. While I'm on that subject, again, I almost missed this. I called my bank. I also had my debit card for my bank. And I had money in the bank. I think I had $12,000 in the bank. I had the $11,500 available on my credit cards. And I called my bank and I called all my 3 credit cards and I let them know I'm going to be out of the country. So, and I'm super glad that I did, because if I hadn't have done that and tried to use a credit card or even my debit card at an ATM, no go. And I'm always paranoid that they're going to lock me out because, you know, for whatever reason, then I'm really screwed. So anyway, that was advice that was given to me via a YouTube video that I watched, and I'm still grateful for that because I wouldn't have thought of it. So anyway, I cleared out my credit cards. I paid those puppies off from the proceeds of the sale. I think I had $13,000 in the bank or $12,000 in the bank cash. I honestly don't remember exactly how much. I know that I brought a little over $3,000 in my pocket, and I had $8,000 or $9,000 still in the bank, and then the reserve money on my credit cards. And that's when I paid for my tickets and all this and that. And I came over here to the Philippines. So my safety net is, let's call it the $8,000 that's in the bank. And, excuse me, I had the $11,500 on the credit cards, again, a safety net. And I had $3,000 in my pocket. So when I landed in Cebu almost 3 years ago, those are my numbers. And when I got to town, I had the $3,000. My second night that I was here, I had also set up a company called Zoom. I did all this in America. Let me back up a little bit. I had my safety net, I had my credit cards, I called everybody, and then I signed up with a company called Xoom, Xoom. Again, information that I pulled off of one of the YouTube channels of the guys running around here in the Philippines. I set that puppy up because it's kind of laborious and they got a lot of safety questions and you got to change your password. So I did that. My one regret is that I did not open up a Charles Schwab account. I could have done it. And it was advised, open up a Charles Schwab account. I did not. Charles Schwab, from what I'm told, I don't have one, but everybody else that has one tells me the same thing. They can go to an ATM here and they can pull out $100 or $500 or whatever amount, and there's going to be fees that you incur, transaction fee, ATM fee, foreign exchange. I pay all that crap on the bank that I use if I have to use my ATM for emergency cash. With Charles Schwab, what I am told is that you're reimbursed for all those fees, so it's pretty much free. Free is good. To give you an example, May and I fell short of money a couple of months ago. We were struggling with some things. I went down to the bank. I got into my little safety net, which is depleted down from 8,000, by the way. It's not still at that level. But I pulled out $100, and it cost me $12 to do that. So that's 12%, you know, and that fees just chafe my ass. So again, I'm not going to advise you what to do, but if I had it to do all over again, I would have opened up a Charles Schwab account. Okay, have I told you that enough? Have I waterboarded you enough with that information? So the ATMs are covered. You can use your debit card here as long as you've called the bank and let them know that you're going to be in Vietnam or Thailand or the Philippines. I actually told them that I said, hey, I'm going to the Philippines. And I told this to everybody, my bank, the credit cards. And they said, is that it? I said, oh, no. I said, I'm going to go to Thailand. I'm going to go to Vietnam. I named off all these countries because that was actually my original intent. I was going to come over here, snoop around a little bit, and then I had these big plans. You want to make God laugh? Tell him your plans. Anyway, I had all these big plans that I was going to go bounce here and bounce there. My fat ass has been here in Dumageddon ever since. So, a couple of trips, but you know what I mean. So that's that. Then on transferring the money, I was here for a couple of 3 days, and something told me, let's get some cash over here. Let me transfer $500 because I want to test it. Again, very paranoid. I was staying at the Tip Top Hotel, and I stayed there 2 nights, and on the second night, I called Zoom. And to tell you that it was a cluster F is not even getting close. For one thing, the internet wasn't working. It was sketchy. It was in and out. And I was talking to this guy. Actually, I was talking to him online, and I still had my T-Mobile account, so I could make international calls. I'd set that up also. And something was going goofy with that because I didn't have a SIM card, so it had to be online, and blah, blah, blah. I spent about 30 minutes with Zoom. The first transaction that I had with Zoom had to be verified. They take, and I appreciate this. I didn't get mad. I was more or less frustrated that I couldn't hear the guy. And then he wanted to send me a text to verify it was me, but the text wouldn't work because I was out of the country. And like a knucklehead, I didn't call T-Mobile or set up an international plan or something like that on there. That was another snafu. Might be something you'd want to consider. And so Zoom was very, very accommodating. The guy said, okay, I got it. I understand. You're out of the country. Calm down. And me at that time, I was on such pins and needles with my life, and I'd only been in country for 48 hours, and I was tired and jet lagged and all that. So my mental state was, still in meltdown mode. But long story short, I got through the first transaction with Zoom. And then I had to figure out where to go get the money. And and the way it works is Zoom, the way I set it up is Zoom sends me US dollars. I can have it converted, this, that, the other. I choose not to. I like to get USD. I will send them a request for, let's say, $500 for this conversation. They will send me back an email and a confirmation number, and it's a 10-digit number with one letter, X, in front of it, and then 9 or 10 digits. And I send the money to myself, no one else. I do not transfer it to a bank. I'll get to that later. I send the money to Paul McGill. Now, on my phone, on an email, will come my confirmation number. One little thing that I learned is the hard way. That's all my lessons are. Take a friggin' screenshot of the number, unless you're going to write it down. Not a lot of pens and papers over here. Doesn't mean I can't have one, but it's just I've become phone reliant. I'm one of those guys. So the first time I went to go pick up the money, I finally figured out where to go. I wrote down, I went online. I tried to get online to pull up the 10-digit number and couldn't get online at the mall or wherever I was at. So I learned the hard way, which is fine. That was actually the whole purpose of that whole excursion, because I still had my $3,000, remember? Well, a little less. I spent some money while I was there. But the bottom line was this was sort of my test balloon of transferring money. And it was an all-day affair, and it was fairly stressful. And it was my state of mind. I was in this state of high anxiety when I got here from all the garbage that I'd experienced back home. So that finally got accomplished, and I learned that. So from now on, I still do it here at home. When I transfer money from Xoom, Xoom is the company I use, They transfer over my money. It's my monthly budget. My monthly budget is between $1,300 and $1,500 a month. I try to save a couple $100 when I can, to go back towards my safety net. And it comes to me. It costs $10.99, $11. That's the fee to transfer the money. There are a couple of companies that I do not use, but I'm going to sign up for Remitly, and I'm going to sign up for TransferWise, just because I like to have a plan B and a plan C. I've gotten real comfortable with Xoom. Their fees are a little bit more, I think. Again, I don't use Remitly, but I've been told that their fees are more competitive. But for me, the $3 or $4, not to be frivolous with money, but it's just a comfort level for me. And the lack of brain damage of starting with someone new, maybe I'm lazy, I don't know. I've just always used Xoom. So let's just say I transfer over $1,500. It comes to my name. I take my number down. I can go to a bank. I can go to these pawn shops here called Mueller. There's different points that you can go to. You fill out a form, your name, your address, your phone number, your name and address from where the money came. So I still maintain an address in the States. And then my name, my address here, from Paul to Paul, sign it off, put the number in that I've got on a screenshot, because I don't need the internet. I just need battery power to look at a photograph. And I fill out the form, wonka, wonka, wonka. They want a couple pieces of ID, and they give me USD. So I can now pull the trigger on how much money do I want to exchange the money. And so me being me, I kind of keep an eye on the exchange rates. Right now it's running about 50. When I first got here, it was like 46, 47. So it's improved. I don't know in the current climate, with all the stock exchanges going wacky, if that's going to affect it or not, if it's going to go up or if it's going to go down. It bumped up a point a few days ago, and now it's settled back down a little over 50. So for every dollar that I exchange, I get a couple hundred pesos or 100 pesos or something like that. Yeah, every dollar is worth 50 pesos. Jesus. Banks. It was a big priority to me when I moved over here to open a bank account. I was, again, super paranoid that I was going to get robbed. I was going to lose money. I had all these horror stories in my goofy reptilian brain. And so to open a bank account over here, what I experienced was I needed two forms of ID, local ID. And so for the first 2 months, I didn't have any local ID. I just had my driver's license and my passport, and that wasn't cutting it. And then after a couple of months, I got what's called an ACR card, Alien Certificate of Registration. You get that at immigration. And that takes a couple, 3 months before you got that in your possession. So now you've got one. And then I was, of course, getting information from different guys. And I went down to the bank and tried to open an account with my passport and my ACR card. And I went to a bank called BDO. And they said, no, we won't open it up. You need two forms of ID. The only other form of ID at the time that I was aware of was a driver's license. And I didn't qualify for a driver's license because I didn't have a vehicle. They actually tie your license to the vehicle. So that wasn't going to happen. So I was really frustrated that I had to keep $1,500 at the time that I was transferring over here in my possession. And I would hide it in different places of the house and all that kind of stuff. And so it was just imperative to me to open up an account. I wanted to park my money in the bank. And here's how it went. My neighbor at the time was a guy named Sam. I was living here at this apartment. I'd been here about 3 months. And I was explaining to him my frustration that I don't have 2 pieces of ID. I tried going down with a copy of my lease and thinking, okay, that'll verify it, because some guy said that'll work. It didn't work. They still wouldn't open an account. And so my friend Sam says, well, you know what? I go to the gym I got my account at BDO. This is Sam speaking. And I go to the gym with one of the girls that works there, like as a supervisor. She's not the big deal, but she's above the tellers. She goes, why don't you come down with me next time? Fair enough. So I went down with Sam, and Sam went over and had a 3-minute conversation with this woman, and we were opening up an account with one ID. So that's what happened to me. It was just kind of like, who you know. Sam vouched for me and said, hey, this is my friend. He's just trying to open an account. He's not happy with holding on to a bunch of cash. Can you do me a solid? And she said, sure. She came to the computer and she overrode whatever she had to override. And boom, I had my bank account and I was super happy. And I was now I was going just strictly to BDO, transferring over my money. And then I opened up what's called a dollar account at BDO. You can open up a dollar account or you can open up a peso account. I should say I instead of you. So I opened up a dollar account as opposed to a peso account. If I opened up a peso account, I would need to deposit pesos. Not impossible. I can have Zoom take $1,500 and they would convert it to pesos, and that's what I would receive. But I did a little bit of math and I saw I lost some money in the conversion rate and this, that, the other. So I found that it was just easier for me to go dollar for dollar and then do it here. With a dollar account at BDO, I would put like if I transferred $1,500, I would put $1,200 in the bank, and then I would cash $300 into $300 worth of pesos, and that way I would have my bank, for that week or whatever. And that's generally because I would go and do the shopping and this, that, and the other. I have since, I'm just going to stay on the bank for a while. I know this is getting tedious, but it's the only way my brain works. I've since closed the BDO account. I have absolutely no interest in having a bank account here in the Philippines. Number one, I've relaxed a lot about keeping money. I know where to put it. I know where it goes. I'm not really paranoid about anybody breaking in. I'm more worried about the bank. So here's been my experiences with the bank, and I got a very timely email today before I made this video, which I'll share with you, about Zoom and BDO. About 3 months ago, I went through my usual routine. I transferred the money. I put, I think, $1,000 in the account. I cashed out X amount of dollars, had my wad in my pocket. I was Fat City for a couple of days. And about 4 or 5 days later, I needed some more cash. I went to the ATM. I had an ATM card for BDO, and it said insufficient funds. And that's where the old blood pressure goes like this. It's like, what did they do with my $1,000? I immediately thought I got hacked. I've been ripped. I've been zipped. I've been zapped. It was May's birthday. It was Sunday. Everybody was closed. BDO was closed. So I was supposed to get all this stuff for May on her birthday, and the good news is her birthday cake and the food and the this were all being provided by vendors out here that I know personally and friends with. And I told them, I can't pay you. I know it's COD, but I told them, I said, I can't pay you. And they said, it's all good. Take your stuff, enjoy yourself, come pay us tomorrow when you can. So there you go. I did call BDO, the little hotline number, and I said, I got good news, bad news. So I called them up, and they said, you know what? they said, oh yeah, you have $1,000 in your account. I said, well, why can't I have it? So that was a big relief. Oh, the money's there. I mean, like 90% of the pressure went off. I said, well, why is it saying insufficient funds? And the woman said, well, we're holding your money. I said, for how long? I said, 21 days. I said, why? And she said, I don't know. She was just guilty of answering that phone call. She said, you're going to have to go to the branch and find out. She goes, all I know is you got $1,000 in your account and you can't have it. So, all right. So I marched myself down there on the next day on Monday, go inside, and here, lo and behold, this happens. The girl that was putting my money in to the account, it was her first time doing it, and I kind of, looking back, I remember she asked a lot of questions and was going back and forth and had that confused look on her face. But whenever I'm transacting with people, I try to keep my mouth shut and just be polite and get out of their hair. And so what happened was she pushed the wrong button. She treated my cash as if it was a check. She pushed the wrong. And so, again, I had a relationship with one of the ladies that works there. I transacted with her a bunch of times before. The Christmas before, I brought all the ladies there, like these little cookie things for Christmas. So we had a nice little rapport going. They knew my name. So when I sat down and I chatted with her and I told her what was going on, she said, yeah, we screwed up. She says, so normally in these kind of cases, in order for us to manually take the money out, there's a fee. Of course, I'm going to waive the fee for you, and that'll be that. And so how much money would you like? So I said, okay, great. So I took some money, and then I had to go back and do that again. I had to go back and do that again. And so it was a little bit of a hassle, but I keep reminding myself, I'm retired. You know, what else have I got to do today? So I spend 45 minutes at BDO, big deal. At least my money's safely parked in the bank and I don't have to worry about it. And I can go to an ATM when I want to. And there's ATMs around in Maggetti, so blah, blah, blah. Same thing as in the States. If I need some cash, I go get it. There's no fees because it's BDO. Well, the ATMs are generally, there's usually two. Sometimes there's four, sometimes there's one, but there's anomalies with them. So if there's two, usually one's under maintenance. And then if there's one and there's people in front of you, some people will do multiple transactions on the ATM. And again, I won't kill you with all the things that people do. They pay loans, they do this, they do that. They do transactions for their entire family. They might have 10 ATM cards in their pocket and they're taking out cash for everybody. Or they're loan sharks and they're taking out money from people that owe them money. And needless to say, the wait time at an ATM can be a little frustrating. So that's just something that I consider. Again, it's not a deal breaker. I've learned that if I need to go to an ATM, that if I plan it a little bit, if I go down to the ATM at 8 o'clock in the morning, it's still working. But there's nobody else there at 8 o'clock in the morning. There's nobody else doing anything. I go to the mall. The mall technically is closed, but BDO is there, and I can go and I can get my cash, and that's that. It's just one of those things those nuances that I've learned to avoid. Well, I have since closed my BDO account because not long after my debacle with the girl pushing the wrong button, I did the exact same thing. I put my $1,000 in the bank. I went to go get the cash. It said insufficient funds. I didn't panic this time. I said, oh, they hit the wrong button again. I went inside to rectify the situation, and the teller told me, well, there's a hold on your money. I said, yeah, I know, but I gave you cash. Why in the world would you hold cash? You hit the check button again. I understand you're holding a check. Make sure it clears, right? And she said, no, we're holding cash now too. And I said, really? She said, yeah. And so a manager came over and explained to me that they want to know the source of the cash. I don't know if it's laundering drugs or whatever it is. And that is actually a policy. So right then and there, I said, may I close my account? And he said, well, I really technically can't give you the money right now. Yeah. I said, how long am I supposed to wait? He said, 2 weeks. On principle alone, I closed the account. I told him very politely, I said, well, that's fine. I'll just stand here until you change your mind. And he changed his mind. We didn't have an argument. It didn't get ugly. It didn't get stupid. He went and talked to somebody who went and talked to somebody, and they talked to somebody, and somebody made a phone call, and they gave me back my $1,000 that I had just put in the day before. And they closed the account, and we all parted as friends. So that's why I am not real high on having a bank account here anymore in the Philippines. It's just too goofy. A very timely email came this morning before I did this video, and it was from our friends over at Zoom. And Zoom just said, we hope this doesn't inconvenience you. And I thought, oh God, the coronavirus has now killed Zoom and I can't transfer any money. That's not it. They said, we're still sending money, but we're just not sending it to BDO. In other words, you can't transfer your money from your bank account to your BDO account. That was another option with Zoom. It didn't have to come to me. I could have moved it from my bank directly into the bank at BDO. And I just didn't do that. I've never done that. I can't tell you why. I know it sounds like that's the simplest thing to do. You don't have to stand in line. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do that. What it boils down to is I just don't trust it. Plain and simple. Never have, never will. It's a different country. It's a different bank. If something gets lost there on the wide web and reroutes somewhere, it's just how my mind thinks. It's my money. You know, it means whether or not I have rent, whether or not I have food, it's money. Very important. So I wanted in my cash in my hands, and that's just the way I've played it. So credit cards. I told you that I zeroed out my balances. I told you that I had $11,500 in safety money. And I went down to buy my scooter after I lived here 6 months. I won't say it. You fill in the punchline about buying the scooter. No, I'm not going to say it. So I went to buy the scooter. The scooter was $1,600. And the reason I went there is they take credit cards. And me being the mooch that I am, I actually had the money. You remember the money in the bank? I still had that. But I wanted to get the points. So I whip out my What's in Your Wallet Capital One. Comes back declined. Really? So how did that happen? So long story short, I called the 800 number, the international number, or whatever they had at the back of the card at the time, and at Capital One, and I got a guy on the phone, and the guy said, you know what? He said, he goes, yeah, you're fine, but you're not fine. I said, what does that mean? He said, well, somehow we managed to charge you $121 for a membership fee. And I said, well, I've never had to pay a membership fee or any kind of fee. In fact, I get points from you guys and like 0% for the first 30 days or some silly thing I had back then. And they said, yeah, but somebody somewhere along the line, guy was honest with me. He says, charged you this fee of $120 or 121, I think. And you never paid it, and it's gone into collection. And I said, so you're telling me, number one, I got charged a fee, and number two, I got a collection account on my credit? He goes, no. He says, we found that mistake, and we corrected it. We removed the collection thing, and you don't owe us 121. And I said, well, then can I just have can I use my credit card now that you and I have talked? He says, no, you have to reapply for another credit card. I said, really? I said, well, you know, I live in the Philippines. Is that okay? You're going to have to mail me the card here to the Philippines. I've done my due diligence in the States, and I should be able to use the card internationally because we've already had the conversation that I'm going to be here. He said, no, we don't mail cards to the States. I mean, to the Philippines. So I said, so pretty much I'm out of luck. He said, yeah, unfortunately, you're out of luck. I made 2 more phone calls after that. And I ended up going to the bank and getting the cash and buying the bike. And that was another Zoom expedition. But I guess the moral of the story is now I'm down $5,000 safety net money because that credit card just went out the window. 0 balance, no longer available. Used my Discover card. No, my Discover card expired, was going to expire. And I called Discover up and said, hey, I'm going to need a new card. I'm not going to use it. I just needed a replacement card because it was coming up on, you know, I had 4 or 5 months before it was going to expire. I figured be prudent, call them prior to that. And they said, we don't recognize you. Are you in the Philippines? I said, yeah. And I said, how long are you going to be there? I said, well, I'm retired here. And they said, well, we don't recognize the Philippines. It's only good if you have a residence in America. Are you living in America? No, just told you, I'm living over here. Your credit card's not going to work. And that was the story with Discover. Poof, $10,000 is no longer available to Uncle Paul. My little $1,500 credit card works just fine. That's a Barclay card. So that's my story, kids. I think I told you my budget. I live on $1,300 to $1,500 a month, me and Baby May. I cleared out my credit cards, and I had some snafu with the 2 big ones. One's not my fault, the Capital One. Discover, I don't know, is that my fault or not? I don't think so, but it is what it is. Can't belabor the fact. Banks, I don't like them. Over here, I don't trust them. Zoom apparently doesn't trust the particular bank that I picked. There's other banks out here, and I'm sure they're perfectly fine, or maybe they aren't. I don't know, because I don't use them. But I just don't trust institutions like that to begin with. I kind of trust my bank in the States, but you know, stuff happens, guys. So my Social Security check, let me answer this question too. My Social Security check is directly deposited, I don't think I told you this, into my American bank account. It does not get transferred here to a bank account in the Philippines. I guess that's kind of apparent after that big speech I just made. But just for the nuts and bolts, the Social Security sends it to to my bank in America. Once it registers there, I can look it up on my phone or on the computer. I can go into that bank, log in, check my balance, make sure all the transactions that have been taken care of are cool. Nobody's snafu'd me so far, so that's all good. And then I just transfer that money via Zoom. There is Remitly and there's TransferWise. I don't use either one of them. I'm probably going to sign up for Remitly because that's another form of Zoom. I believe TransferWise is just bank to bank. So you know my feelings on that. But I wanted to throw those names out there to you. Okay, well, we didn't have any Mays, we didn't have any chickens, we didn't have any goofy jokes, we didn't have any long stories other than me talking about money. And I'm sorry it took so long. We're going on 40 minutes, which is the longest I've ever done. But I just want to make sure that I clarify with you guys what I do, what I did, how it's working out. And right now I'm happy with just having the cash in my pocket, stashing it here at the place, cashing in some money, and living my life here with little Baby May. All right, I'm going to make a couple more videos today because yesterday I was tired and so was Baby May. And I appreciate you guys watching. All right, bye.